Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm sorry for the noise you're going to hear on this trip. I kept saying that I was going to clean the disc brake rotors on this bike, and I never did, so you hear that. And I just kind of want to go home and enjoy the fact that it's still sunny outside, so I'll work on that later. I can't work on a lot of the stuff at home because I don't have a garage. You know, I bring my bike upstairs when you live in a fourth floor and it's heavy, and the apartments have like 12, 15-foot ceilings each. Kind of sucks, especially with how narrow the stairwell is. So I usually leave it downstairs. So I only work on the bike while I'm at work. And today I just wanted to leave work early. You know, it's a nice looking day outside and it's still sunny. So what I wanted to talk about today was a text message I got from an ex-girlfriend. Of all days to get a text message from an ex-girlfriend right after I upload the video that I uploaded about 15 hours ago. Funny how that shit works. So I got a text message from an ex-girlfriend. No, not the one mentioned in the fucking video. And we were back and forth, and one of the things that was mentioned that I want to focus on in this video was where she said, I'm 30 now, or with a bunch of sad faces and sad emojis, and it's my birthday, I'm 30. Lots of sad emojis, sad general rhetoric. And she sent it with a little song that says, like, it's over or the end. This is a really, really bad idea to have a restaurant right in the middle of a bike lane, but hey, you do you. And I mean, I think this is something that everybody's somewhat familiar with, that idea that it's rude to ask a woman for her age. Why are you in a bike lane? Why are you picking shit up in a bike lane? Why? Fuck this city sometimes, man. Anyway, it's like, you see me coming. You see me coming like I'm on the front page of Pornhub, and you just bend over to pick shit up there. Why? Anyway, there's that whole idea, it's rude to ask a woman for her age. Like, my mother used to say it's the 10th anniversary of my 30th birthday because she couldn't fucking mouth the words that I'm 40. There's that, like, weird cultural stereotype of women being aggravated when their age becomes 30. And in my experience, I'm sure I will get shit in the comments for saying this. In my experience, more often than not, I have spoken to, at least in my life experience with women that I've dated or know, there's a real touchy thing about that whole turning 30, turning 40, and the general idea of aging. And for me, I actually kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed the idea of turning 30, and I wanted to talk about why that is and how to frame this, how to try to frame this so it's not as miserable. If you are similar to my ex-girlfriend who messaged me with a sad face and a YouTube link to a song called The End as a result of it being your 30th birthday, which I forgot. So, I think I should start by saying that when I grew up, I felt like I didn't have the most opportunity available. I grew up in a household where there were parents that pretty much found something to scream about every day until 2 or 3 in the morning. It wasn't pleasant. I didn't have a lot of money. I started I was working at Avatar Studios for a while until 3 or 4 in the morning for free just to learn. I worked at another studio in the Film Center building for a while, and that was also unpaid for a long period of time. And I really tried my best to build some opportunity for myself. And once I got to my 20s and the business that I was working at went out of business, I started focusing more on my own business. And my chain came off. Yeah. This bike has a broken tooth in the Lecky chain ring. I forgot about that. And I'm waiting for a new one to come. Most of the shops that sell these are out of stock of them right now. But there's one that has it, and I'm expecting it to arrive this Tuesday, which I'm excited about. I have that coming plus a spare. The Lecky chain rings are really good, except for when your integral gain is stuck too high. I want to do a video on these controllers where I showcase what happens when your integral gain is way too high and your proportional gain is way too low, because most of the people making these controllers are making presets for them. They really focus on cranking up integral gain while having proportional gain way too low, and it results in this reaction where your bike acts as if there's a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Coke head with a sledgehammer inside of your motor smashing on it every time you turn it on. And the fix that they have to that is this thing where it'll keep the chain tension with a certain amount of amperage even when you take off the throttle. But that's really a ghetto fix to the problem of way too much integral gain. So anyway, I turned it down, but that was a little too late because by the time I turned it down, the chainring was already missing a tooth or two. And this will apply to like a lot of the ASI and phase runner controllers. Anyway, I learned my lesson for the other bike, which has a very nice Lecky chainring, which has not been destroyed by the evil of integral gain set to a stupid number. So, I didn't have what I felt like was a great opportunity or a great starting point. And I kind of worked as much as I could to get where I was. And what I started doing in my 20s, once I got to the point where I finally felt like I have a little bit of success for myself, and a friend of mine also used to do the same thing, who worked at a studio with me. He started, and we both started in the music business, trying to work professionally at the same time. Me more on the technical end of, fixing devices, like, tape machines, LA2As, LA3As, Pultecs, that kind of stuff. And him wanting to be a recording engineer and producer. And as the years went by, him growing up in a broke part of the Midwest with some family tragedy, and myself growing up in the circumstances I did and trying to start a business from nothing in 2008, right after the recession hit, when everybody was firing and people were saving all their money, not spending it. It was a difficult task to do. And what I noticed us both doing was we were framing our accomplishments as follows. So what we would do is we would say, look at what we accomplished in spite of. Look at what we did, in spite of where we started. Look at what we did despite this, despite that, in spite of this, in spite of that. And I think that I can't explain why others do it, but I can explain why I was doing it. And if I look back and I'm honest with myself, I think I was doing it because it pads my ego. Because it makes me feel a little bit better about the fact that I haven't accomplished my full potential. I don't want to say everything, because I don't really know what it is I'm supposed to accomplish or what it is I'm capable. But I'll just use the word potential there because it describes what I would be capable of that I'm not exactly sure what I'm capable of, but what I would be capable of. And if I hadn't done all the work that I needed to live up to my potential, it was really easy for me to say, yeah, but look at where you started. Isn't this good enough? You started. So if you start from, or if you have a lot of obstacles and you start from a shit place, even accomplishing really small things starts to seem like this great accomplishment. And it makes it easier to start patting yourself on the back, which admittedly for a while I probably did. Again, I started a business in the middle of a recession and it went quite well. And I had another business that failed. I managed to skate by without losing my shirt and losing everything and, having to go back to Model Sporting Goods with price tags on basketballs. I tried to figure out how to fix boards on my own without getting any sort of electronics engineering degree. And is there anybody behind me? Yeah. Fuck these park anywhere lights, man, I swear. And it went pretty well. I managed to learn how to do what I do without being some sort of really well-educated tradesperson. And I got pretty good at it. But there's a lot that I could have also done better. I could have written manuals and guides for how to do a lot of the tasks at my business so that it would have been easier to grow it over time rather than waiting to the point that it's about to explode to then start focusing on business processes and stuff like that. I could have not made the mistake that I made with my supply company, and instead of framing things in terms of, look at what I did in spite of, I could have said, well, yeah, you accomplished something, but yeah, you also really fucked up here, and you're fucking up right now. You should stop fucking up right now so that you don't ruin your entire company. There's lots of things I could have done a little bit different, a little bit better. And I think that I was saying that all too often. And it's really easy to talk yourself into it because as most things that we talk ourselves into believing are, there's often a truth in it. There's often a half-truth there. And when I think about right to repair and I say, look at what we accomplished in spite of going up against Apple's lobbyists and trade associations, I'm a thousandaire. They're billionaires. It's really easy to build that narrative for yourself. when you talk about other businesses that they got started on a real business loan. I got started with $268 that I found under my bed or whatever. There is truth to it. It's more difficult to do things properly when you're wondering how you're going to pay your gas bill and you're behind the 8 ball all the time and you're debating whether to pay your rent or your gas bill so that you can buy some parts. And but at the same time, there are things I could have done better. And I think one of the things that held me back throughout a lot of my 20s was the way I phrased things for myself. Look at what I did in spite of. Look at the relationship that I'm in spite of the fact that I grew up with a poor model of what a proper relationship is. Look at what I built as a business in spite of starting with no money and blah, blah, blah. It's always like, look what you did in spite of. So when I was 29 years old, that CBC News piece came out, the one where they take a device to my store, and I remember speaking on the phone with the people from CBC, and they said, we'd like to do a piece on how Apple's bad with upgrades and updates and stuff like that. And I said, fuck that. How about we do something more fun? Find a machine that's broken, bring it to the Apple, ask what they say is wrong with it, and then bring it to me, and I'll show you what's actually wrong with it on camera. And the story will write itself. Those are my words. The story will write itself. And I was kind of setting myself up there, because what if it was a PM Sleep S4L or a dead CPU? I'm going to look really stupid for a while on camera. But I trusted in the fact that the Apple Store offers awful service, and they do not disappoint on that. So they did that piece in April of 2018, and they published it around September or October of 2018. And that story exploded, absolutely exploded. And I remember around the time that story exploded, just noticing the change in the industry from the 10 years prior when I started to, are you seriously doing that park anywhere light shit in the middle of the street? Oh, come on, man. Yeah. So, because when I started in this business, and the customers were ridiculously, how do I put this? Overly skeptical and more overly willing to believe what Apple told them regarding what's going to happen to their device. God forbid that Guido from Staten Island work on it. And by the time that piece came out, a lot changed. So people were no longer at the point that they were in the beginning, where they thought, if I work on it, that it's going to get destroyed, or everything's going to stop working, or it's going to blow up, or nothing's going to be put together, and blah blah blah. And they were more skeptical when they went to the Apple Store. So when they went to our store, they trusted that we were going to do the right thing. When they went to the Apple Store, that's when they thought that they were going to get screwed. And a lot of that, I think, was my videos showcasing what all these faults are and teaching people how to recognize them in their own devices so that they could read through the Apple Store's bullshit. But a lot of that was also you guys, spreading this stuff and spreading the idea that independent repair are not just a bunch of vagabonds that destroy everything, by also taking part in independent repair and being good independent repair shops yourself. So I started to notice with that maybe we could have goals that are a bit more ambitious, because things I never thought I'd change were changed. And I turned 30 about a month or two after that, and I started thinking to myself, for my 30s, I don't want my 30s to be about look what I accomplished in spite of. I want it to be look what I accomplished. I don't want it to be look what we did in spite of having no money. I just want it to be look at what we did. I don't want it to be look at how far Right to Repair got in spite of how much they spend on lobbyists. I simply want it to be look at how far we got on Right to Repair. So what I did for my 30s to kind of make it more fun, rather than seem like the end, is I changed the framing of my goals to something that was more fitting given what I accomplished in my 20s. So I took everything that I accomplished in my 20s, and then I asked, how am I framing what it is I'm doing right now? Honk at me all you want. I am not riding through that. Fuck off. Frankly, if you didn't have an Arrow 7, you'd be able to just do this and you wouldn't have to go past everyone, because you'd just be fast to begin with. Like this. See how much faster this is than an Arrow? Shameful, shameful electric bike. The Arrow 7. pitiful garbage. It's the Ford Pinto of the e-bike world. I don't know, they're braver than I am. But I like to look around shit and kind of see if I'm going to get hit by something before doing all this weaving. They just go. So what I did is I took my goals from my 20s and I kind of reframed them for my 30s. And honestly, that makes things a lot more fun. So like starting this trade association, this is going to be really ambitious. I have to take all of my company standards, make sure they don't suck, all of my procedures, make sure they don't suck, reframe them in a manner where they make sense for the entire industry rather than just for my company, and make that available to everybody. I need to stop acting like I'm still that person that started with $200 in his pocket and no support, with the gas about to be turned off in an apartment that was filled with termites, because that's not true anymore. And pretending that that still has any relevance to my current situation is really just being done to pad my ego, because that's something that human beings tend to do. So for my 30s, I kind of see it as a new beginning rather than as the end or as something to be sad about. I see my 30s as the start of a new era of my life, because I'm framing the world differently based on what I accomplished in my 20s. So I learned a lot in my 20s, and rather than have the same outlook on the world that I did in my 20s, I'm just tweaking it a teeny tiny bit and then trying to see what is now possible now that I have that new outlook. And I'm kind of curious what doors it's going to open that weren't open before, because I had a different idea. So doing that really kind of made me excited about the fact that I'm 30 rather than sad. It makes me like, and like when I had that 30th birthday in November of 2018, I was really thinking like, the moment I get back home, I want to put together a plan and I want to get to work. You know, I don't want to simply be content where I am. And a lot of stuff started to change. You know, I remember back when we had, let's say, like 3 or 4 emails coming in a day for inquiries for stuff, and it was 7 to 10. Then it was, this is a little shortcut I'm taking to the Manhattan Bridge, for those wondering. Little shortcut. Then I got to getting like 16 to 30 to 48 to more than that. You know, like coming up with a framework to be able to reply to all of them instantly. I think a lot of the reason that a lot of people to kind of stay where they are is because it's kind of like it's good enough even though it's not acceptable. So what do I mean by that? So I could have actually probably stayed where I was with, you know, only having 3 or 4 employees and became a 3-star business rather than a 4.5 to 4.9 star business, simply by just not coming up with the system to answer more emails. So after that CBC News piece came through, anybody who has a business that answers emails understands that eventually you have to come up with a framework for canned responses for this specific model, the specific problem, the specific type of customer. Here's how you respond to it. Because if you're responding to the same inquiry 48 times a day, you're not going to respond differently every single time if it's the same effing question. You're wasting your time and your resources to do that. You need to come up with a framework for it. But if you don't come up with a framework for it, you'll get less business, or people will leave you 1 stars when you don't respond to them for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You know, he didn't answer my phone call because he didn't pick up, didn't answer the email. But if you have that event like that CBC News piece that kind of bumps your business up, it'll kind of even itself out. So rather than grow, your business will stay the same, but you have a lot more new customers, but you're also going to be pissing a lot of them off because your business is not able to take them. And a lot of small businesses that I deal with, they really don't scale in any way, shape, or form. To the, you know, when they get busy, like there are many small businesses that I've emailed that don't ever respond to them, or they respond a week and a half, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks later, or they don't read it. Like just basic shit like that. And I used to wonder, how did they actually make money? And the reality is they probably had one of those moments, those catalyst moments where they started getting gigantic amounts of business, and they had a fork in the road. Do I grow? Or do I just stay where I am, even if I'm going to wind up pissing off a lot of the new customers, because it's just, I don't feel like doing the work. You know, and that's kind of when you figure out if you own your business or if you're renting it from other people. You know, if you're not able to scale, if you're not able to grow it, then you don't really own it. You just kind of rent it from the people that are doing it at that particular point in time. I'm not trying to become a Walmart of repairs or anything like that, but certain elements you should be able to scale to some extent. And I didn't really do that work. And the reason I didn't do that work is if I'm really being honest with myself. In my head, I probably just kept telling myself, you know, look at what I accomplished in spite of, and that's reason enough that I should be happy enough. Where I am. But it's really not. If there's people out there that are unsatisfied or unlikely to be satisfied because your business is incapable of satisfying them when you have everything you need to be able to satisfy them, probably should kind of move on or try to do more. And I see where there's potential for so much more. You know, there's potential for so much of what we figured out in our head to be made available to the next new business. And that's part of what I want to be able to do with this trade association. It's really kind of grab all this shit out of my head and make it available to as many people as possible. And grab all the stuff that we've collectively learned. Make it available. And honestly, I've gotten for myself at least another 3 to 8 years of work to do to make that happen. So I don't have time to be sad about the fact that I'm 30 or 31, but that I'm going to be 32 in November. Rather than be sad, I have time to be honestly kind of anxious like crap. You know, humans start to kind of crap out and die around 70 to 90. I don't know if I have enough time to get done all the things I want to do. This is a really nice view. It's cool that I could show it to you now because I have a helmet cam. I updated my firmware, by the way, and put on rock steady. I don't know if that's any different than EIS, so I thought I updated the firmware because when I installed that bullshit DJI spying application that you have to fucking install to activate their piece of shit action camera, which I would have never bought if I knew they had that crap on there to begin with, it asked me if I wanted to update the firmware. And I did. And it didn't have that. But then when I updated it from the computer, it then gave me an option for Rocksteady, which leads me to believe I didn't actually have the newest firmware like I thought I did. But now I do, so I'm kind of curious if it's any better. If it's not any better, that just means that my head shakes too much, and that I should probably be mounting the camera back on my bike rather than on my head. My head makes a pretty poor gimbal. I don't know why they put fencing over here because it makes it artificially narrow, which then causes people to bump into each other. Freedom is not guaranteed. That's interesting up there. So I'm not sad about my 30s at all. There's no part of me that's like, damn, I wish I were back in my 20s. I did a lot with my 20s. And the only thing that's there to be sad about is that I had the potential to do more. And my 30s are about living out that potential. So my 30s is removing that framework of excuses. Because right now, I'm closer to my future than I was to the termites. I am chronologically closer to the future where I have accomplished a lot for right to repair. I've grown my business immensely. And I've defeated the lobbyists to some extent. I'm much closer to that future than I am close to the past of living in a house that had a termite problem, that when you bring it up to the landlord says, what are you complaining for? What are you, Pinocchio? They're not after you. There's no sad face about being 30. Do I look a little different? Yeah. In 2017, I got this viciously awful sunburn while I was on top. I was going up a mountain in California, and I fucked up. I forgot to get a hat or suntan lotion, so my face just got so... I aged 10 years in that one day. I came back sunburned, and everything was fucked. But I don't really care. If I had a really beautiful face, I would have cared, but my face kind of looked like a JTAG connector anyway. Now it just looks like a burned JTAG connector, but it's still a JTAG connector, you know? I look a little different, but I don't really care. It's not like, woe is me. I used to be in my 20s. Man. I'm not going to forget a lot of the stuff that I went through in my 20s. I'm not going to forget carrying Peter Brown's drums across the street for a studio session I knew he wasn't going to pay for. I'm not going to forget working at Avatar until 4 in the morning to set up the tape machine for the Nick Dadia and Bruce Springsteen session, produced by Brendan O'Brien, who didn't want us in the room because while spending hours trying to troubleshoot a tape machine, we fucked up, I think, between having the middle button in the console. I forget, there's a green and a red button in the middle of the knee VRP, and this shows how out of touch I am with studio gear. I forget if that's mic and line or if that's monitor versus record. It's really been a long time since I've seen anything like that. God damn it. I'm following that bike instead of following the traffic signals. At some point, there is this thing that happens where I just start following the traffic around me rather than what I'm legally supposed to do. That happens at speed limits too every now and then. People will be honking behind me, so I'll speed up a little, but before I speed up, I'll look and I'll go, wait a second. I'm going 28 and a 25. What am I speeding up for? I'll have very, very fond memories of my 20s, of building the business that I did, of finding the people that helped me get there, and of working with them, and of all the obstacles that we overcome and the stories that we'll have. I really do. I'll remember all that stuff and I'll appreciate it. But, 30s is about what do we do next? He wants to pass me. He's pissed. Anyway. I don't think there's a point about being sad about the concept of being 30. Maybe it's different because I'm a guy. I don't know. I didn't keep track of it. If I did, it would depress me. Probably like $1,500 or around there. I put it together myself. He asked what I paid for the bike. I told him I didn't keep full track. It says walk. So I... That annoying noise. Jesus. In the bike lane with the park anywhere lights on. Yes. I really need to get some park anywhere lights for my bike. You know what I really need? I need to get some don't steal my wheels lights for my bike. Aw, there's a doggy. Look at the cute little doggy. What a cute little doggy. That's a horn. Isn't that peaceful? That's a fancy schmancy building up there. I'm noticing fancy buildings now because I used to look at stuff like that and go, that's how I could tell I can't afford to live there because of what it looks like. But come 2021, I want to buy that building for $20,000. Maybe $21,000. I'll be generous. Don't want to stick it to them too hard. It's a pretty building. Vroom. He's getting a good nap in front of the church. Barclays Center is over there. There's a lot of controversy about that place getting opened up. There's a lot of bumps over here, so check out this road. Tell me if you can see that. Look at this. This is the wave right here. That's the fucking wave. It's been like that as long as I can remember. Never gets fixed. I don't know what the fuck de Blasio does with the tax dollars. Maybe he just lights them on fire or something. Why are you in the middle of the street, you bum? Go, go. Car go vroom. He's wondering, why am I trying to get around this car? I don't want to see you turn on those park anywhere lights shit. You park anywhere somewhere else. Bike goes vroom, car goes vroom. But always vroom. Oh. Jeez, this freaking rock. There's lots of trees over here. Look at the trees. Aren't they pretty? Look at all these trees. Tree. See, he's from Florida. He knows how to use turn signals. I approve. Florida driver that uses turn signals. They're rebuilding a church over there. Aim Malik, renovation specialist. Another church over here. Oh, look at that. A happy little rainbow. It's a happy little rainbow. Yeah, looks like people are going out again. You know the really creepy thing about reopening, though? There's no stage 5. What's stage 5? We have stage 4. I mean, are we just supposed to permanently stay in stage 4? Is that the way this works now? Permanent stage 4? Like never going back? You know, kind of... I feel bad for all these places. Like, they're doing their best to survive right now when there's no way in hell they'll be able to survive winter if they're not legally allowed to do business. It's all going to be so fucked. And how they're paying their rent right now, when the landlord wants the whole thing, and they are only able to use the sidewalk, is beyond me. Man, it's going to be something else. That guy has a bunch of Shark Pack batteries in his bicycle. That's pretty cool. I wonder at what point it may start to hit that some of the measures that we took may have not been the best, the smartest. Like, I was really young when 9/11 happened. But I was still like aware and old enough to remember when there was some debate versus the tsunami of people yelling, "Do something, somebody do something." Like, what do we get from that? The TSA, the Patriot Act, and Iraq War. Those are the 3 levers that we got pulled. And I'm really kind of curious, because like when Corona started, it was all, do something, do something, do something. And we got a seemingly permanent shutdown, which I'll believe is not permanent once I see that there's a stage 5, or that the city really has any plans to address the fact that there have been 0 coronavirus deaths for a few days here. The city of 8 million people. We got a really fucked up bailout thing where, like, first it was bailing out a bunch of money for large companies, and then afterwards, when people were close to revolting over it, we got the PPP thing that you maybe or maybe didn't get, depending on where your application was, and some people got it after they were already closed and bankrupt, and others... You do wonder, like 5 or 10 years from now, what are we going to look at and say, that was definitely the right thing to do, that was definitely the wrong thing to do, but I get why you did it, and that was the wrong thing to do, you should have been beaten over the head for the fact that you did it, with regards to Corona. I'm kind of curious what the hindsight being 2020 thing will be in 2030, looking back at what we did now. But yeah, I'm really wondering what is going to happen, like, once it really starts to hit people. Like, the people that actually did what they were, quote, supposed to do, and, you know, like, paid their staff, paid their rent, did not take an income for 4 to 5 months, and maybe got a pathetic little 8-week bailout package from the government for their 20-week or 30-week or 40-week being shut out of business thing. Like, when's it going to really hit? When are we really going to see the results of it, or the... Because, you know, like when someone close to you dies, or you break up with someone, and you don't really have the full emotional effect. Like, it doesn't really fully hit you until, a few days later, a few months later even, and then you just break down and cry. When you didn't break down and cry before, but maybe like a month or two, or even a year or two after it happened, you just break down and you start crying uncontrollably because of that, something like that happened. I'm kind of curious, when is there going to be this mass grieving for all of these businesses and people's livelihoods that got destroyed? Yeah, I mean, I'm empathetic to it because I can't imagine what it would be like for me. I just can't imagine living through that. Losing everything that I had worked for 12 or 13 years. I look back on those emails every now and then because I got a couple of them where people are like, "You piece of shit, I can't believe you're open. You're not when they say they're talking about tech support, they mean tech support for essential services like hospitals, not you fucking data recovery Mac repair person for the workforce that's now working from home." And I remember reading some post in Reddit r/coronavirus that got deleted and about me, and I don't know. Like, I'm looking back on it later, and I really don't see what I could have done that would have actually been better. Don't get me wrong, like moving, there's a lot I could have done better with moving. I could have done a lot of stuff way, way better. Finding space, good job. Hiring contractor, Lewis sucks. I really think I did everything that I could have. Everything that made sense. The one thing that I didn't make enough sense of, the one thing I didn't do properly, is have a plan on paper that allows me to restart in another location with, if everything had to be restarted entirely from scratch in another location, I wouldn't have been able to pull out of New York City if, Cuomo actually started sending the NYPD in on people that were actually working. Wouldn't have been able to do it somewhere else. And that's a vulnerability. That's something that I really want to fucking fix. Well, I got my 30s to do it, I suppose. So, this is really becoming rambly off of the topic. What do you think about turning 30? Something to be sad about or something to be happy about? What's your reaction to it? That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.